that's been part of our culture for such a long time. You have a hard time finding out someone who didn't know what a phaser was, or what a photon torpedo was, or what a Klingon was. And I think that familiarity, along with the fact that the show is always based around a family of people who are off on an adventure together in a world that's a better place, and the fact that the shows and the movies tend to deal with allegorical and metaphorical messages that give people a little something to think about. It's a very hard thing to really focus on, but it's very good for all of us. We're very pleased that it's held in there so well.
It means that obviously there is something pretty profound and pretty interesting about Star Trek. That it has not only survived for 30 years, but thrived for 30 years. And my feeling on it, my theory about it, is that it's about hope. It's essentially about hope, with an extension into the future, which is also, again, a tribute to man's imagination and to the better part of his spirit.
It's kind of unbelievable that there's still this much love and affection around for all of us. It makes us feel awfully good to know that we left some sort of an impression for the youth of this country.
I always have felt responsible for the success of the series because I was the guest star on the pilot.
That was you?
That was me. Me and Gary Lockwood. We wore lenses in our eyes and those silly powder blue stretch pants and didn't understand it at all, but it's been incredible.
It's almost unbelievable, truly unbelievable that this sort of thing could happen. And no, we never imagined when we were making the show originally that something like this would occur. That's the question I'm always asked.
We started out on the Enterprise 30 years ago, and I ended up on the Excelsior with Captain Sulu, and we just did Voyager, and that was 30 years later. It's just amazing. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Well, it's nice to be out there and do the real thing, but it's also nice to see the fantasy stir the imagination of young people and move us away from the preoccupation with the present and start thinking about the future and what technology has in store for us.
When you go to a computer company or NASA or something like that, you find a lot of kids who are there who watched the original Star Trek when they were kids and who got their start because of interest in Star Trek. So we hope that kids who watch our show might be similarly inspired.
I never even heard of Star Trek until I was asked to do it about 2 years later. But when I did, I was told that my agent said, you're doing this thing with Mr. Spock. And I said, don't talk to me about Mr. Spock. I'm so busy reading Dr. Spock, Mother and Child Care. And that's what I was doing. So I said, I'll do it. I'm sure the children will like it.
Actually, I did a Star Trek episode when I was a little girl, so they invited me to come.
And what was that experience like for you?
That was neat. I was Hendril, and I had brains on the side of my head, and I was supposed to be telepathic, so it was pretty cool.
It was a very optimistic show. It didn't hold an Armageddon-style view of the future. It said that every day we're a little bit better than we were yesterday, and we'll be a little bit better the next day. So Gene's view was quite optimistic. He said that the future is bright. Yes. And I hope that's true.
There's an ethical center. The moral dilemmas are always handled, I think, with almost an epic angle. So I always feel very elevated by the work, which is a big surprise because I was not very familiar with Star Trek. And I find myself more continually and deeply challenged by Janeway than probably any other role in my life.
In the last 30 years, the technology of television and film production has grown so much that you look at the original Star Trek and you realize the limitations they had and how brilliant they were. Matt Jeffries and Bob Justman and those guys, how brilliant it was to make that first Star Trek under such low budget, such constraints. And by comparison, we have computers and motion control, and it's remarkable how far the show has come.
The fans are amazing. They're just amazing. We love them very much, and they love us, and we'll do anything for the fans.
I remember when I first did the show, everyone was like, oh my goodness, and they're like, oh cool, I'm such a Trekkie fan.
We live in a world where knowing, or at least believing, that things are going to be very uplifting and things are going to get better for mankind in the future is something that people hold very dear to themselves, and I think that it's something that has kept this whole franchise alive in people's hearts for such a long time.
My father was such a fan of the show, and as a kid, we watched whatever he had the channel turned on to, and I became as big a fan.
It's good. They started off where nobody else feared to tread, or whatever they say.
It was a wonderful evening, and I guess because I don't watch a lot of television, I love the idea that Star Trek is about accepting, people for who they are rather than what they look like or what color their skin or where they're from or something like that. And that was kind of the theme of tonight, and I loved that.
I was very touched when Spock died the first time in the Star Trek films. And I'm thrilled that we have a female captain. I had the pleasure of working with Kate Mulgrew as Captain Janeway when I played Amelia Earhart for one of the Voyager episodes. They found Amelia Earhart and several other people from the 30s trapped in a cryonic state, and they brought us back to our natural temperature, I should say. And it was wonderful to play two female space or aircraft pilots. That was a wonderful opportunity for me.
It's amazing to think that it's touched so many people, including astronauts who can't go out and do the real thing.
Yeah, it's kind of strange because we don't do these events very often, and when we do, it really hits you how big this Star Trek phenomenon is. It's easy when you're shooting these episodes to go to work and you go on a little stage with all the same familiar crew people and the same faces and think that you're just making the show for yourselves. And you forget how big it is, to see the real astronauts cut in on these clips here, the real astronauts flying through space and then cutting to our ships flying through space, how we've inspired people to follow those dreams.
It went up with the shuttle, and it was on the space station Mir. It was on Atlantis and Mir. And when they said that, I actually burst into tears and had about 20 seconds to dry my eyes before I had to go up and collect it. I was very moved. Very cool.
I think the message is really amazing because what it does is it takes us out of the world we're in now and deals with a lot of issues that we deal with now. And it looks to the future, obviously. It looks to solutions to a lot of problems we have today. And I think what I realized tonight was it was very similar to what Dr. Quinn does, only we said it in the past. We said it in the 1870s. And but it has basically the same mission to look at the human spirit and to look for solutions.
The fantasy and creativity with which they told those stories is unique. You don't find that type of serial drama with the same sort of visionary aspects.
May we all live long and prosper.